Before the second coming of Christ, these 4 signs will take place. The Bible is a history book, but it's unlike any other history book you'd find in a public library. It begins with the creation of the earth and ends with the end of the world. No other book has ever covered such a vast scope of events on our planet. One reason for this is that no human was there at the beginning to witness or document it, so no one else can authoritatively write about how the world started. And yet, in a way, we are the only people who know how it will all end. This is unique. The Lord didn't reveal the future to his followers just to satisfy our curiosity. He did it so we'd be prepared for what's to come, so we wouldn't be taken by surprise when these events start happening, and so we wouldn't misunderstand them. We can be grateful that Jesus was so clear in sharing what the future holds. People often ask, are we in the end times? Well, according to the Bible, the last days began a long time ago. We've been in them for about 2,000 years. The last days started at Pentecost, when the first prophecy of the last days was fulfilled. Every generation of Christians should live in readiness for the Lord's return. The Bible is filled with predictions. It contains 735 prophecies about the future. In fact, 1/4 of the Bible's chapters include some kind of prophecy. From beginning to end, it's essentially a prophetic book, though some sections focus more on predictions than others. Out of the 735 prophecies, 596 have already come true, exactly as foretold. That's 81% of all Bible prophecies that have already been fulfilled. Some of these prophecies were written centuries before they came to pass. With a track record like that, it doesn't take much faith to believe that the remaining 19% will happen too. The Bible has been 100% accurate for every prediction that could have been fulfilled by now. Most of the remaining prophecies are about the return of Jesus and what will happen afterward. So how many of these predictions need to happen before Jesus comes back? The answer is around 20. And we're watching to see those unfold before looking for his return. Jesus told us to watch and pray. But what exactly are we supposed to watch for? It doesn't mean we should stand still, looking up at the clouds, waiting for him to appear. That's not what he meant. He meant that we should pay attention to what's happening in the world and look for the signs he gave us to help us prepare. These signals are the signs. So let's look at Matthew chapter 24, where the disciples asked him, "What will be the signs of your return?" When the disciples privately asked Jesus on the Mount of Olives, "Tell us, when will this happen? What sign will signal your return and the end of the world?" Jesus gave them a clear, direct answer. We can thank God that Jesus responded in such a straightforward way. In the book of Revelation, he provides an even more detailed answer, but here in Matthew, he gives a summary of the signs that will precede his arrival. Jesus told them, "Don't let anyone mislead you, for many will come in my name, claiming, 'I am the Messiah.' They will deceive many. And you will hear of wars and rumors of wars, but don't panic. Yes, these things must take place, but the end won't follow immediately. Nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes in many parts of the world. But all this is only the beginning of birth pains, with more to come." Then he warned, "You will be arrested, persecuted, and killed. You will be hated all over the world because you are my followers. Many will turn away from me and betray and hate each other. And many false prophets will appear and deceive many people. Sin will be rampant everywhere, and the love of many will grow cold. But the one who endures to the end will be saved. And the good news of the kingdom will be preached throughout the whole world, so that all nations will hear it, and then the end will come." Jesus continued, "The day is coming when you will see what Daniel the prophet spoke about. The sacrilegious object that causes desecration standing in the holy place. Reader, pay attention. Then those in Judea must flee to the hills. A person on the roof must not go down into the house to pack, and a person out in the field must not return even to get a coat. How terrible it will be for pregnant women and nursing mothers in those days. And pray that your escape will not be in winter or on the Sabbath." Jesus went on, "For there will be greater anguish than at any time since the world began, and it will never be so great again. In fact, unless that time of calamity is shortened, not a single person will survive." but it will be shortened for the sake of God's chosen ones. Then, if anyone tells you, "Look, here's the Messiah," or "There he is," don't believe it. For false messiahs and false prophets will rise up and perform great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even God's chosen ones. So if someone says to you, "Look, the Messiah is out in the desert," don't bother to go and look. Or, "Look, he is hiding here," don't believe it. For as lightning flashes from the east and shines to the west, so it will be when the Son of Man comes. Just as vultures gather where there is a carcass, these signs indicate that the end is near. Immediately after the anguish of those days, the sun will be darkened, the moon will give no light, the stars will fall from the sky, and the powers in the heavens will be shaken. And then, at last, the sign of the Son of Man will appear in the heavens, and there will be deep mourning among all the peoples of the earth. They will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory, and he will send out his angels with a mighty blast of a trumpet, and they will gather his chosen ones from all over the world, from the farthest ends of the earth and heaven. Jesus continued with an illustration. Now, learn a lesson from the fig tree. When its branches bud and its leaves begin to sprout, you know that summer is near. In the same way, when you see all these things happening, you can know that his return is very near, right at the door. I tell you the truth, this generation will not pass from the scene until all these things take place. Heaven and earth will disappear, but my words will never disappear. Jesus laid out 4 distinct signs of his coming. So what are these 4 signs? The first is disasters in the world, wars, famines, and earthquakes. These have been happening for centuries, but they're intensifying, showing we're in the midst of this sign. Jesus repeatedly warns us not to be deceived. As the end approaches, deception becomes a greater threat, both outside and inside the church. He warned us about false Christs, people who would use the chaos of natural disasters to present themselves as saviors. There have been cases of people who led others into remote places, claiming to be deliverers, only to end in tragedy. Jesus advised us not to be alarmed or distressed by these events. These disasters, painful as they are, aren't signs of death, but birth pains. When we see these things, it means something new is coming. As Christians, we should be hopeful. Disasters are like labor pains. They mean a new world is about to be born. While we sympathize with those who suffer and offer help, we shouldn't be alarmed. We're looking forward with hope. In short, Jesus' advice to us is to avoid panic. Instead of being disturbed, we can even find hope in these signs. The second sign concerns the church, not the world. Just as the first sign, worldly disasters, is broken down into wars, earthquakes, and famines, the second sign is divided into 3 parts, all happening within the church. First, there will be persecution. We'll be hated in every nation. Second, the size of the church will shrink as many people's love grows cold under pressure. And third, the gospel will be preached to every nation. In this purified smaller church, Jesus says, the gospel will spread even more powerfully. False prophets will arise, teaching comfort and peace when there is none. But Jesus' message is to hold firm and endure. He warned that whoever perseveres to the end will be saved. As Christians, we're called to stand strong, even when under pressure, knowing that God has chosen us out of this world. The third sign of the end times is Jerusalem's distress. Jesus refers to Daniel's prophecies about an abomination of desolation, a man who will set himself up in Jerusalem, calling himself God and refusing to accept any authority above his own. This tyrant will bring chaos to the world, but he will be centered in the holy city of Jerusalem. The fourth and final sign comes immediately after that. Jesus says that just before his return, all natural light will disappear, the sun will go dark, the stars will fall, and the moon will cease to shine. Isaiah prophesied that the heavens will be rolled up like a scroll, and the stars will drop like withered leaves from a tree. This will prepare the way for the blaze of light that marks Christ's return. When he comes, it will be unmistakable. We won't be meeting him in a stadium. There isn't one big enough to hold the crowd. We'll meet him in the air. Isn't that an incredible thought? When we see these things happening, we know he's at the door, ready to step through. Jesus used the fig tree as a simple analogy. Just as we know summer is near when the fig tree buds, when we see these 4 signs, we know his return is close. Sadly, many have misinterpreted this analogy as an allegory. But Jesus was giving a straightforward illustration from everyday life. When we see these signs, we know the time is near. In closing, here's a question for today. What's a worship song that has helped you feel closer to God? Let us know in the comments.